All right, what's up, everybody? How are people already in here before I'm actually starting this thing? You guys are good. You guys are good. I hope I sound okay. I've been dealing with basically having no voice. I assume it was just laryngitis or something like that, but it was pretty humbling. I tell you what, you talk for a living. You take for granted the ability to actually talk, right? All of a sudden, if you can't talk, you can't do YouTube lives. You lose some of that livelihood. You come face to face with your own mortality. Very, very close. Very, very close to that over the last few days. I was actually at the K-State game on Saturday and not able to talk. Like, I really could not talk much at all. I couldn't ask questions or anything like that. It was a bizarre feeling, but I had to just rest it for a couple of days, not talk, and now I'm just ready to explode and talk. I just did the 2-hour radio show, made it through okay, had some smooth sailing as far as that's concerned, so we are all right. What's up, Juan? I see you in the chat. What's up, Micah? What's up, Timothy? Appreciate you guys already being there. Get those questions and comments flowing in the chat. I will answer as many of those as I can here throughout the show today. And as always, tell you guys every time, you can donate. 1, to just help the cause. 2, to get your question or comment up to the top of the chat so I don't miss it. It is the $ button below the chat box where it says say something. Juan, you are correct. K-State is looking pretty good right now. One of the conversations that I want to have today is who's got the best resume in the Big 12 heading into conference play after 3 weeks. I think it's the Cats. I think it's K-State. I think it is, but we'll talk about that later on. Man, appreciate all you guys hopping in there. Boom to the Sooner, Jeffrey, John Bishop Jr., Parker, Ryan, Blake, Zach, Bo. I think I got everybody that's already in there right now. Again, keep the questions and comments coming. So I'm gonna start with just a couple little takes. I have here. What up, Robbie, Alan, Parker? See you guys in there. One take that I have is I have to tell you about a funny moment here. I try to be very open and not be ever like I'm some, I'm just a human being, right? I'm just a human being like everybody else. Funny moment happened. I'm having some computer issues right now, like even now. I hope you guys let me know if the chat messes up. Even now, it's a little choppy, just like looking at the playback on my end. My computer's a little bit overloaded. And so it created this moment where on, I think that was that Friday? I think it was Friday. So on Friday, I'm getting ready to tweet the link to my video about Dennis Dodd's report that the Big 12 is essentially waiting around and hoping to go pick off some Pac-12 teams eventually, right? And which was a very intriguing paragraph and something that makes sense. And I think not enough people are talking about what happens if and when the Pac-12 gets bad news on their upcoming TV deal, because I think that will have massive ripple effects. And I think USC will be looking around the same way that Texas and Oklahoma were like, man, we're going to be making $20 to $30 million less than our peers now for the next 10 to 15 years because that's all we'll get on our TV contract again. I think that's a huge deal. But it was not my report. I didn't have anything to add to it. And so I'm just tweeting the link to my video. And as I'm going to tweet the link to my video, my computer has this little hitch where like it'll just get frozen for a second and you won't see what actually happened. So I pasted the link, but I was literally walking out the door. I was running late getting to the gym and I didn't double check it. I just clicked tweet and I go work out for like an hour and a half and I come back out and I look and it had posted without the link because of the damn little hitch. And it looked like it was like my report out there or whatever. And, this tweet's accumulating all these likes and stuff. And I was just like, oh, God. Because I am trying not to be like clout chaser. I'm not trying to just, clout chase off of other people's reports. I didn't have anything to add really to that. So it was an embarrassing moment. Your boy here sometimes is not always the most detail oriented. So that was a very interesting moment. I do not have anything to add to the Dennis Dodd report other than that little paragraph. The part that I can add is that I think, in my opinion, that is smart, and in my opinion, that makes a lot of sense because I think that the Pac-12 is going to get bad news on their TV deal unless George Kliavkoff really has some rabbit to pull out of his hat, and they're going to go to market before the Big 12. And I think that'll open up the door to what's going to happen to USC and Oregon here. And if we want to even relate it back to the video I posted today, which was Mac Engel of the Fort Worth Star Telegram, he had the report on TCU and Houston being very close to getting Pac-12 invites before the Pac-12 decided they didn't want to expand. I come back to that now, and I'm like, all right, so like if you are Houston sitting there, and Houston had some kind of opportunity to go to the Pac-12 eventually, I still think you'd probably take it, but that would at least like give me some doubt, some pause there. I'd want to know like what the details are going to be on that TV contract, and I'm not sure that there would be any. I'm not sure that there would be any good explanation for the Pac-12 right now on the other side. Look, Jamie and I see you in there. Robbie, I'll get to your K-State question in just a minute. I'm holding off for just a little bit because I'm kind of doing the opening monologue thing here, but I really appreciate the donation. I promise I will get to your question. Jamie and saying this channel is delusional. Like I mean, look, all I did was take a paragraph from a national reporter at CBS Sports in Dennis Dodd, who said that is what folks in the Big 12 are hoping for. And I'm saying I think it makes sense to wait out and see what happens because the Pac-12 is not going to get good news on the TV contract. And again, as I stated in that video the first time, to me, the only scenario in which that happens is if the Pac-12 has exploded first, which would be USC and Oregon leaving. And if you're going to call me delusional for speculating about USC and Oregon leaving, then I think you're very off base. But outside of that, I've never said that the Pac-12 is going to have teams leaving for the Big 12 tomorrow. Circumstances have to change. Why would they do that now? They would be making less money. I don't even think it would add that much to the Big 12 TV contract to get some of the teams that you'd be likely connecting the dots there to. But there's nothing delusional about thinking that it is still a risk that USC and Oregon basically are flight risks. There's nothing delusional about that at all. Because you think the Pac-12 is going to get a better TV deal? I would love to know what the actual comeback is there instead of just reading headlines and thinking that I'm sitting here behind a microphone every day saying that the Big 12 is about to take half of the Pac-12 because that's not at all what I'm saying. And it's not even what Dennis Dodd is saying in his article. It was just one little blurb. Basically what this channel is I try to – now, look, Jamie, you're misunderstanding me. I'm not saying USC and Oregon would leave to join the Big 12. I'm saying USC and Oregon would leave to join the Big 10. The Big 10, or maybe even the SEC. I don't know how much of a power play the SEC wants to make here, but they're going to look around and say, okay, if the Pac-12 TV deal is going to keep us in the same spot, which is about $32 million per year, then we are going to be in some trouble because right now the Big 10 is already making over 50, and the SEC is going to be north of 60 by the time Texas and Oklahoma get there. So if the next TV contract, you're signing your rights away for the next 10 plus years at still $32 million, you're making 20 or 30 million less than what you would consider to be your peers in other conferences over the long term. It's exactly the situation Texas and Oklahoma ran into in the Big 12, where they said, we're going to make that much less over the next 10 years because the Big 12 TV contract is going to be the exact same. We have to get out. It's an extremely plausible scenario that USC and Oregon will look around and be like, okay, well, we got to do something. And then you're talking about the SEC, you're talking about the Big 10. And look, about the only comeback you have at that point is like Alliance, and it's like, okay, well, the Alliance, there's nothing signed. It was stuff scribbled out on a napkin. So like, that's what I'm saying, Jamie. And like, none of this is just linear. Like USC and Oregon are leaving to the Pac-12. I hope it seems like you're a little more open to this now. I hope that there's more nuance to this than just reading headlines and thinking, oh, the Big 12 is going to break. No, like there are things that have to happen, but there's a lot of nuance that goes into this. Okay. I've got a couple donations from K-State fans here. Let me jump in with some K-State questions. But if you want to shift the topic on that, just donate by clicking the $ below the chat box, and your question or comment will get up to the top. Robbie asks, how do you feel about Jaron Lewis? How about our Cats? So Jaron Lewis is K-State's he started the year as the third-string quarterback. Now he's, in essence, the backup. K-State had a great win over Nevada, a pretty good Nevada team, 38-17 on Saturday. Sorry, I may be coughing a little bit here, guys. My voice is still not like totally back to where it was. Jaron Lewis basically got a predetermined couple of series in the second quarter where they threw him out there. That was the plan before the game. They had told both quarterbacks. Jaron Lewis was solid. Like they didn't ask him to do a whole lot. K-State only threw 13 passes the whole game, which 3 of which were Jaron Lewis, 10 were Will Howard. So, I think it was just steady, solid. He didn't turn the ball over. He didn't make a big mistake. And that's about as much as you could have asked for a guy playing in his first snaps out there. And they drove down and scored. So no problem at all. with Jaron Lewis. Now, Will Howard was still pretty good for the most part. He did the same thing, used his legs to make some plays and hit the one big pass play to Amatter Bebe at the beginning of the game. So be very interesting to see what happens in Stillwater this weekend, like what K-State wants to do with that quarterback situation, if they want to do the same thing where they're going to play both quarterbacks in a predetermined amount. I don't know. I would guess that they ditch that, but Chris Kleinman's press conference is tomorrow. We'll see what it is that he's going to do. I see a comment in there, Nick, saying I could see USC going Indy. That is something that could happen too. The part of that is, like, again, you need somebody that's going to be interested in your games. Like, would USC be able to get the kind of deal? And I don't know the details of Notre Dame's contract with NBC, but could USC get the kind of deal that Notre Dame has with NBC to be able to make going independent worth their while? I don't know. Some of that may, USC's got a pretty important coaching hire coming up here too. They're not going to be very far down the road in a new tenure of a coach before that TV contract comes back up again for the Pac-12. So I don't know how much of a difference it'll make in the short term, but long term, I think that could be very interesting. WTF, man, K-State is going down this Saturday. Hey, I'm here for a little friendly trash talk. I think it's going to be an awesome game. I'm really looking forward to K-State and Oklahoma State on Saturday. And if all of you want to pay your $6.99 on ESPN Plus, you can watch the only matchup of ranked teams in the conference on Saturday. As ridiculous as that sounds, right? Very ridiculous. 69 Chevelle SS 396. Thank you for the donation, my friend. He said, Wildcats are solid, brother. Will we get the three-peat over the Land Thieves? Emaw, will Skylar be back? All very good questions. The Land Thieves, to the uninitiated out there, would be the Sooners. That would be the Oklahoma Sooners. So the question there, will K-State beat Oklahoma next week? I am not going to predict that. Whew, man. Still getting back into it. Okay. I'm not going to predict that K-State will beat Oklahoma. Will Skylar be back? I think that is still the goal and the hope, but it's far from a guarantee. So if you can get through this weekend and win in Stillwater, that could set up a monster game against Oklahoma. If Skylar is coming back, he's been Oklahoma's kryptonite and beaten the Sooners, obviously, each of the last 2 years. That would be a fascinating development. I've seen a couple of people ask me here in the chat, too, about College Game Day. I know that K-State feels that they should try to push for College Game Day next week if they win in Stillwater. There are a lot of other great games going on, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, but they already have Notre Dame on game day this week. It's Notre Dame, Wisconsin. There will be Bama, Ole Miss next week, which would seem to be the obvious choice, except for the fact that Bama and A&M is the week after. So that would seem to me to be a no-brainer for game day. That's going to be a couple of top 10 teams, assuming A&M doesn't screw up. So I think there's a chance. I think there would be an outside chance at game day. If not that, then maybe like Fox's. Do they just call it Big Noon Saturday? Fox's pregame show, I think, would be on the table too, because the game's actually going to be on Fox at 2:30. So I think that would be a possibility too. But you got to take care of business. Obviously, you have to win. J&J Outlaw Sports, appreciate the donation as always. Arizona State, Arizona, Memphis, Boise to the Big 12. USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon to the Big 10. The leftovers go to the Mountain West. Bank it. Well, I don't think that's an implausible scenario at all. Memphis, Boise, and then the two Arizona schools. I think, like, if you have the Pac-12 powers leaving to go to the Big 10, like, all bets are off as far as what happens with the rest of that conference. I think the Pac-12 would be in just as bad, if not worse shape than everybody else in the Big 12 at that point, right? Because, I mean, look at all the bullets. The Pac-12 is even taking bullets right now from the Athletic, which is who we kind of accuse of being the caretakers, the people that are really caping up too much for the Pac-12 right now. They're taking bullets from the Athletic in terms of how poorly they're performing on the field already. And we know about the branding issues they have and everything else that's going on. So, like, it's absolutely a plausible scenario. Memphis, I will say, on the Memphis topic, J&J, Memphis earned some respect out of me this weekend. Not only for, I mean, look, obviously they won a game against Mississippi State, and they had the crazy punt return thing that happened, or kick return, but punt return, I think it was, right? Punt return. Memphis also had an incredible pregame speech. It was making the rounds on Twitter. An incredible pregame speech. So I just messed up. I know I got the $10 donation that said, hey, this is a comment that's going to the top. My guy, I know I love that you do that. Thank you so much for that. I've spaced on your name and it just left my screen. It is very appreciated. I love that you do that. I love the shtick of just saying, hey, this is a comment. This is a comment at the top. This is a donation. I apologize. I didn't click on it fast enough. Things are happening very quickly here. I did not click on it fast enough to get your name. Please tell me who you are in the chat. If that was you, tell me who you are. I'll get you a shout out. I really feel bad about that. I try to make all of you feel very appreciated when it is that you hop in there. Okay, so MJB set 93. Why does it appear that the G5 conference leadership appear to be sitting on their hands? Are they sitting on their hands? Well, look, the latest piece on that from Dennis Dodd was that basically there's a sense in a lot of those leagues that they need to wait and see what's going to happen with Texas and Oklahoma first before they really go down that road. Which to me, that doesn't, I think they may be waiting too long if they're going to wait and see what happens with Texas and Oklahoma as far as when they're going to go to the SEC. So that surprised me a little bit to see, but I don't think they're totally Caleb, my man, Caleb, you were the one that does that. This is another comment at the top. You're the man, Caleb. Thank you for the donation and thank you for your shtick. It makes me smile every single time I see it, even on just the regular videos. Thank you a bunch. So I don't think they're totally sitting on their hands, though, because we are getting all these reports. Like Dennis Dodd had a great article, and I did a video on it. It's the one that has the Boise State title because a lot of it focused around Boise and them being courted by the AAC. That, to me, is the evidence they're not sitting just on their hands. I mean, clearly there's a push being made by the AAC to try and go get Boise and try and go get some of these teams out of Mountain West. So they're trying. I just think, like, that's a tough sell. I don't know why, if you're Boise, Memphis, San Diego State, any of these schools that think you have an outside chance at the Big 12, I don't think there's any reason to go geographically challenge yourself for basically the same amount of money, basically the same amount of prestige, and then maybe still jump to the Big 12 in a week or two anyway. I don't think that makes very much sense to me. See a comment in their video was buffering. I hope it's not a problem. Has it been a problem for you guys? It had a little hitch for me just a minute ago. It's because of my computer right now. I'm having some computer issues, so I'll try and get that worked out for you guys. But yeah, I don't think G5 conference leadership is totally sitting on their hands. I think they're trying. I think you probably would still see something happen if there is. But I think it all starts with the American, right? It's all going to be about what happens for the American. The pecking order, it's the food chain. Everybody goes down, right? The SEC rated from the Big 12, Big 12 rated from the American. The American's next in line, and it's going to be how can they, how well can they do? How quickly can they move? How well can they do? What can the American actually pull together? Which I don't think they're going to get their top targets. But by the way, I don't think the American is going to be screwed. I don't think they'll be in a terrible spot. I see like Timothy Haynes in here. If the AAC adds Air Force, Colorado State, and UAB, I expect them to take Rice. Like, look, I think those are decent options. Now, I don't know if Colorado State or Air Force is going, but UAB is one that I've seen a lot, and that is one that I love. I love the potential of UAB for the American. Football crazy area. Decently, pretty proximity to talent. Pretty good being down there in the South. Football program that has certainly been through a lot and seems to be trending in the right direction. Like, I think that makes a ton of sense. And I think there are some options like that. Louisiana, if they want to go get Louisiana, App State, maybe. I think there are ways that they could definitely still make themselves whole and be in a pretty good spot. I think be similar to what the Big 12 solution has been, I think will be ultimately what the AAC finds, although I don't think it will hurt quite as much because, yes, those brands were very important, Cincinnati and UCF to the AAC, but I don't think it's quite the level of losing Texas and Oklahoma, especially just because we're talking about – that's no slight against Cincinnati, UCF, or Houston at all, but it's more to me about – you're trying to sit at like the big boy table, like there are just too many people that care way too much about the brands that Texas and Oklahoma bring to the table, and it just convincing them that you're worth something without those brands actually pulling everybody along in your conference. That's going to be a tough go. It's going to be a tough go. I should mention Mike Aresco. I know I put that in the tease, the title of this video. Mike Aresco, speaking of, and this to me would be further proof that the Group of Five conferences are not totally just sitting on their hands. Mike Aresco got a contract extension. So, reading from The Athletic, the American Athletic Conference has extended the contract of Commissioner Mike Aresco for 3 years through June 2025. It was announced Monday. There's a quote from the Tulane president, who's the chair of the Americans Board of Directors. They're very happy with him. The news of the extension comes less than 2 weeks after conference members Cincy, Houston, and UCF accepted invitations to join the Big 12. Aresco is the fourth longest tenured FBS commissioner. He trails the Mountain West, the MAC, and good old Bob Bowlesby in the Big 12. Wow, Bob Bowlesby, elder statesman. How about that? That's kind of crazy to read. But look, I think that actually makes sense. I know a lot of people would read it and be like, well, you just lost your three best schools. Like, why is the guy getting an extension? I think he played it as well as he could. He tried to go along with ESPN's little scheme to really take advantage of that and supercharge his conference, superpower his conference by grabbing Big 12 teams, which was that narrative for a while, right? Oh, hey, the AAC is going to be able to go raid the Big 12. He tried. He gave it a go, and he put legitimate fear into me. He put fear into the heart of me. So that to me indicates that he was doing a good job, certainly doing as much as he could for his constituents. So I don't fault him at all for that. I think right now he's being aggressive and trying to go after Boise. I think it's pretty clear he's done good things with the league and growing the league's popularity, the deal that they have with ESPN. I think there's a lot to like about what he's done as a commissioner. So frankly, I think it's smart. If I were the AAC, I don't think I'd want anybody else running that conference right now. Like, he's definitely earned it. I think he's earned an extension, and I think he'll continue to earn it. So I've said this before, there's definitely some bad blood because, again, he made me really, really threatened by what he was doing there for a while. And, you're going to be fierce and you're going to come back with the reality of the situation, which was the American just didn't have the clout and the prestige to effectively pull Big 12 teams away, right? But that doesn't mean that I don't still think the guy has done a good job. Kind of like when I go back to the Oklahoma State smack talk that was in here a little bit earlier. I'll throw some back and forth. I'll have some friendly banter, some stuff like that, with a level of respect. I think that's really what it was. I was feisty about Aresco, but it was with a level of respect. So yeah, I appreciate that. I see in here. So Mike says, Cincy fan here. I heard K-State had the 4 upcoming Big 12 teams on scoreboards. That's awesome. I think they did. Maybe someone else can help me out there that was at the stadium on Saturday. I certainly was. And I think at least when they were doing the halftime updates that Brian Smoller does on the Jumbotron, that they included them in the little scoreboard there. And look, I can just speak for, I think, K-State fans right now, and most fans in the Big 12 are taking a lot of pride in the work that the other schools are doing, the incoming schools are doing right now in their schedule so far. More on that in a moment, because I've got the numbers that I know everybody is pointing out right now about the Big 12 versus the Pac-12 so far. Let me get to Jerry's question here. Jerry, greatly appreciate the donation. Thank you for hanging out in the chat today. Jerry says, in the end, I think the Final Four are Boise, Memphis, San Diego State, and either Fresno or Nevada. The Big 12 will not raid the Pac-12. If the Pac-12 does stay intact, if they get a double-digit grant of rights with a new TV contract and all of that within the next 18 months, then I can see that scenario playing out. And I tell you what, man, Fresno, I've heard from my guy Justin, who used to play baseball at K-State, who hits me up all the time about Fresno. I got a couple of Fresno fans that are always hitting me up about, hey, the strength of their football program and what they have to offer. They're making a pretty good play for Big 12 inclusion by the way they've handled themselves so far this year. Darn near won at Autzen Stadium and then picked off UCLA, which I was very happy to see, although I didn't see it because it was on the Pac-12 network, which virtually nobody can see. But it looked like an awesome game from the highlights, and they found a way to beat UCLA, which was crazy with their quarterback, basically having to get – you guys remember when Byron Leftwich was carried down the field to be able to finish off a game from Marshall. That was like what Fresno's quarterback was having to do to go out there and finish off UCLA. So yeah, anyway, it was very entertaining to see. Very entertaining to see. So look, I'm somewhat open to Fresno. Nevada, I don't know any of the details enough about Nevada. I mean, I know they're a good team this year, and I was certainly hyping them up going into the K-State game. They lost by 3 scores, but I think Carson Strong is legit. But to me, it's like, how much of it is just Carson Strong? I don't know. I don't know enough about what's going on at Nevada. I would take them over UNLV seemingly right now based on the state of their football program. I mean, sheesh. I mean, UNLV just got the brakes beat off of them by Iowa State. I know Iowa State is pretty good, but Iowa State's offense had done virtually nothing all year, and they came right out and rolled. UNLV is not in a very good spot right now. Not in a very good spot at all. But I appreciate the question and the donation there, Jerry, a lot. If you want to make sure that your question or comment gets up to the top, you click the $sign to donate below the chat box, below the say something box. Appreciate all you guys that have been doing that. Let me see. I'm going to need to go pull up the old Twitter machine here to get my stats, my official stats on the Pac-12 and the Big 12 from this past weekend, because the thing is, most of the ammunition that you need to continue making this case that the Big 12 is better than the Pac-12 right now was supplied by The Athletic. It was The Athletic who supplied this on Sunday. The Pac-12 so far this year, 16 non-conference losses, 5 losses to the Mountain West. This is maybe the best one. 4 losses since 7 p.m. Saturday night. If there is not a more Pac-12 stat than that has ever existed, the Pac-12 had 4 losses that occurred post 7 p.m. Saturday night in non-conference play. That is funny because it just exemplifies every issue that the Pac-12 has. The games that are too late so that nobody sees them, and the fact that they're losing games. Like, it shines a spotlight so bright on both of those things. Here's one that I'm sure a lot of you in the chat will like. The Pac-12 so far this year has 3 losses to BYU. I mean, it is going to be hilarious at the end of the year to go look at the Pac-12 standings and have everybody point out how many Pac-12 teams finished actually below BYU in the Pac-12 standings, finished with less Pac-12 wins than BYU. Pac-12 also has 2 losses to FCS teams. I saw this stat from San Diego State. San Diego State has won 7 of the last 9 games that they've played against Pac-12 schools. So you've got BYU. BYU has won 3 this year. San Diego State has won 7 of the last 9. Yeah, it's not going well for the Pac-12 right now. And a lot of those schools out there, Fresno, which just saw win, San Diego State always playing those teams, BYU always playing those teams. You guys are doing work. And I really enjoy seeing that. J&J. What's up, J&J? The Pac missed their window to save their TV deal by not rating the Big 12. They left them breathing. Pac worried about appeasing the Big 10. Yeah, so a great point here, J&J. Remember the Pete Thamel article where he said the Big 12 should just go expand as much as possible, raid the AAC and the Mountain West as much as possible to destroy those conferences below them. And by the way, John, I see the $2 donation in there. Thank you so much, John. Sometimes I miss those guys if I'm not looking directly at the chat. If it's below $5, it doesn't like pop up to the top of my screen. So if I ever miss those, I do apologize. They go by pretty fast, but I appreciate everything, man. I appreciate that, John. So the Pac-12 could have done the same thing to the Big 12, right? That to me would have been almost reason enough for expansion, even beyond just the obvious of trying to cure the central time zone thing. Like, you can get into an extra time zone. You can get into the state of Texas. That is why that's a big part of the case, right, that Mac Engel was making for TCU and Houston being the teams there. You could have done that, but at the same time, you would have been delivering the kill shot to the Big 12. If you take 2 or 4 Big 12 teams, you're effectively ending that conference. You're taking out the competition there, and now you're sitting here staring your TV deal in the face, being like, hey, are we really going to get anything more? And still opening the possibility for your big boys to leave. And you left the Big 12 enough time to go scramble and get the best 4 other options out there. Now they're at least viable. And now you're going to have to weather this media storm all year of the struggles that your league has had, because we're basically, we're close to being done with non-conference play, right? Most teams have played the majority of their non-conference games by now. And the Pac-12 has this narrative problem yet again. And that's even with Oregon winning at Ohio State. That's even with Oregon winning in the horseshoe. There's still enough of a problem with the Pac-12 perception that stuff is still getting out there. So I agree with you, J&J. I agree with you that they could have helped their TV deal a little bit by taking some of the Texas schools, and they would have just helped out their long-term security by knocking out the Big 12 and taking out their competition. So I do. I think it was a mistake. I think it was a misstep there, and I think they have left the Big 12 breathing. Oh, it is killing me that I've got like this scratch in the back of my throat still. So apologies if I'm drinking a lot of water and coughing and whatever. Okay. Juan, can you talk more about the Houston video you released today? What's your take on the possibility TCU and Houston jump to the Pac-12 before even joining the Big 12? Yeah, so if you guys didn't watch it today, I posted the video where I talked to Mac Engel, who's the one that wrote that report in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram about Houston, where he says that Houston and TCU came painfully close to getting an invite to the Pac-12 before they decided not to expand, and that he thinks it still could happen within the year, which obviously would mean that Houston would jump to the Pac-12 before even joining the Big 12. It seems to me, look, I have not investigated clearly enough all the details here. I don't know what all the paperwork looks like, but it would seem to me that there's probably some fees. Like, do you have to pay the $80 million exit fee if you're Houston? If you've already joined the league and then you're going to jump out of it, like that seems very messy. It seems expensive at worst, messy at best. And I also just, the one thing that I got hung up on with the reporting there was the report, part of the report that said Houston got offered football and men's basketball only to the Pac-12, but didn't take it. And then came like crawling on hands and knees to the Big 12, where Tillman Fertitta, the chairman of the board at Houston, was like fighting and scrapping and clawing to do everything he could to get the Big 12 to take them, after initially apparently the Big 12 was going to pass on Houston this time around. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I'm not trying to specifically come out here and doubt Mac Engel's reporting. I know that he has a good reputation and obviously a great job at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. So I don't know what specifically it is that he's heard, who he's hearing it from. Is it for Fertitta? Fertitta? Have I been saying that the wrong time? Thank you, Edward, if I got that wrong. Really bothers me when I'm pronouncing things incorrectly. Fertitta. Okay. Tillman Fertitta. But yeah, I'm doubtful. I am doubtful that will still happen. Now, again, Mac really stood by his reporting. I have not heard a lot to corroborate his reporting. Okay, now I'm seeing Fertitta. I don't know what it is, guys. I'd always said Fertitta. I hope that I'm not pronouncing that wrong. But yeah, I don't think I would be pretty shocked. Let me put it that way. I would be shocked. I've not heard a lot to corroborate that report. And I'm also at the same time, Mac Engel, I'm sure, has better sources than I do, because he's been working for a long time at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. That's a good job. I know that Kliavkov, I see you, Timothy, in there. Kliavkov had basically denied that and said they didn't get close. I do think there's a possibility that Kliavkov would publicly say they didn't get close if they did get close with somebody behind the scenes, just to try and save face for everybody. But that doesn't mean that I think this is going to happen. So I hope that gives you a little bit more in-depth on that, Juan. But I appreciate you following along everything, Juan. I see you all the time, man. And certainly wish the best for Houston. Houston played like a nobody, right, this week, or they rolled over somebody. FCS school, maybe. I can't remember who it is that I saw that Houston played this week. But everybody was killing it. The only loss this week from the new look Big 12 was Kansas, and they were playing a conference game, so somebody was going to have to lose, right? That was Baylor and Kansas. So pretty good week for the league, man. BYU, you guys stand up out here, just crushing the Pac-12 left and right. Crushing the Pac-12. Love to see it from BYU. You guys may have another pretty nice season here, man. I mean, look, I'm watching Zach Wilson in the NFL. He doesn't look all that good. Maybe he was just a BYU machine propping up Zach Wilson. I'm being a little bit facetious there, but UCF got beat. Dang it, you're right. I'm sorry, UCF did. Boy, UCF fans, I am so sorry. That was a rough way to lose a game. And not only that, but you lost your quarterback, Dylan Gabriel. Is Dylan Gabriel out for the year? Do they know that definitively? I saw it was a broken clavicle. I don't know what the recovery timetable is on that typically, but that does not sound very good. That is what is the epitome? Who is it that says the epitome of brutality? That's John Rothstein, right? So the epitome of brutality is losing that game that way for UCF and then losing your quarterback at the same time. That all wrapped into one, man. That was absolutely brutal. But as a neutral observer, I will say a wildly entertaining college football game. So, yes, I'm sorry. I messed that up. UCF did also lose. As far as the teams that are actually in the league right now, as it's currently compromised, it was a pretty good week there. And certainly BYU's providing a lot of juice. Cincinnati providing some juice too. And I know, like, you could look at that and say, well, there was a controversial call that helped jumpstart Cincinnati, and they were scuffling a little bit at the beginning of that game. I don't buy much into that, man. I think that was a juiced up, and I know you'll roll your eyes at like Indiana, but all the reports were that was a pretty juiced up environment for Indiana. They really did pack the place. They were excited and pumped up for that game. And I'm thinking about this in the context of K-State this week, going to play the first like legitimate road game that they've played since 2019, because all these road games last year were not packed houses. Those were not real legitimate road games. So same story here for Cincinnati going into that game with Indiana. It's a first kind of like true, like, let's get a big time Power 5 road test of the year out of the way. They weathered the storm, they pushed through, and they wind up in the end winning fairly impressively over Indiana. And now it sets up, I mean, you just took care of business, proved you're legit by going and winning that game, and now you get your real shot. Now you get a bye week, and then you get Notre Dame. And like I'm buying into you guys, man. I really enjoy watching BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, Houston. I've only been able to watch you play Tech, but certainly same goes there. If I can catch a Houston game, I'm going to. I'm enjoying jumping on board here and rooting for these teams. And I am jacked for Cincinnati, Notre Dame. Absolutely jacked. About 8 weeks, Lewis. 8 weeks on Gabriel there. Okay. 8 weeks. I guess that could be worse. I hope the backup situation at UCF is all right. Okay, I know, Terrence. I know Arizona State was pretty undisciplined, but this is still BYU, like, exiting out of the Zach Wilson era, starting the year with 3 straight wins over Pac-12 teams, and doing so with one of those wins coming over Utah, who they hadn't beaten in a decade, right? Like, I'm not going to take anything away from them. And by the way, you know, the play that a lot of people will point to in that BYU Arizona State game is the kid that chased down the guy that was about to score a defensive touchdown, jumps over the back to punch the ball out. Like, you can say Arizona State's being sloppy there. I would just say that's a heck of a play. I think that's a heck of a play. To me, I'm still going to give BYU some credit there. I definitely am. Also, you know, maybe if Arizona State didn't have this whole thing hanging over them of the NCAA, maybe Arizona State's a little distracted, and maybe some of that's been brought on them by themselves, you know, and BYU hasn't done that. And sometimes that's what it takes in college football, is just not beating yourself. That's why turnovers matter. Turnovers matter a lot. And there's something to be said for teams that are just solid and don't turn the ball over. RJ Dickens. What's up, RJ? Appreciate the donation and appreciate you coming in here. Says your take on reports that the Mountain West is looking at Gonzaga, Wichita State, and maybe St. Mary's. I assume that would be for basketball, and I had not actually seen that. I think that would be great. I mean, I think it would make for a really fun basketball conference, and I would actually I poke fun at Wichita State sometimes, right? Like another in-state school, but I would actually be happy to see Wichita State find a good landing spot for their basketball program, because I know how much that means to people in the state. I was actually born in Wichita. My mother attended school at Wichita State, so I do have a little bit of a soft spot there. I would like for them to find a nice landing spot. Gonzaga would be interesting, man. Gonzaga would be interesting. Are they unhappy in the WCC? I mean, I know that it's like every time you turn them on TV, they're winning games by 40. So whatever they can do to probably up their level of competition, they would, I imagine, see as something pretty good and beneficial. You know, I see Dehe in there. Why would Wichita State leave the American? I mean, the Americans' basketball has been diminished a decent bit by losing, probably more than a decent bit by losing Houston and Cincinnati, right? Like that's a pretty tough blow. So, yeah, I mean, my take on it quickly without knowing a ton of detail on it, I would like to see it. It seems like that would be fun, and I would be happy for Wichita State if that happened, because right now it doesn't seem like they're in a great spot in the AAC, where they had just left not that long ago, and now football, you know, if you're Wichita State, you're just kind of along for the ride, right? Like football controls everything. You don't have any real power over that, and you just have to sit there and wait and hope that your basketball program winds up okay. So, yeah, anyway, I think I got a little bit sidetracked here. I was talking about the Pac-12 numbers, right? Let me finish this thought. So the Pac-12 so far this year, 16 non-conference losses, 5 losses to the Mountain West, 4 losses since 7 p.m. Saturday night, 3 losses to BYU, 2 losses to FCS teams, and then I can even tack onto that less draft picks in 2021 than the new look Big 12, right? That was 29-28, and 0-5 against the new look Big 12 in 2021. They lost games. Cal lost to TCU. Stanford got bludgeoned by K-State, and BYU has beaten the 3 Pac-12 teams that they have beaten. So again, it is so, the notion that it was laughable to compare the two, or any notion that the Big 12 was not going to be able to compete, like when it comes to competitively, like on the field standpoint, it was so dumb. It was so dumb. It was so ridiculous, and such I think just a lazy narrative and an easy thing to laugh off. And again, I understand that we're 3 weeks into the season, but we have also played most of the non-conference games right now. So everything else the rest of the year is going to be the Pac-12 beating up on each other. And they got the one big win, right? I mean, the one thing that the Pac-12 has going for it, and it is a substantial thing, was the win at Ohio State for Oregon. We'll see how much that holds up. I mean, Ohio State does not look great right now. They're messing around with Tulsa in the fourth quarter, who lost to UC Davis. So we'll see how much it holds up. But the point is, I think what's happened through non-conference play has already proven to us that it is at least going to be a discussion. It's at least close, right? It's not in any way ridiculous to suggest that the Big 12 will be every bit as competitive on the field as the Pac-12. And I'll scream into this microphone as much as I possibly can, whether it's on these live chats or the pre-tape content, whatever it is, on Twitter. I'll continue pushing that narrative and beating that drum as much as I can. And I can tell you, I'm going to try. I've been kind of waiting and trying to plot the right time to do this, because Stuart Mandel will typically respond to me and has come on my show a couple of times. I would really like to talk to him now to have a friendly, I'm not going to go attack the guy, but just have a friendly discussion about this topic here pretty soon. And I'm thinking about playing that card, using that bullet, so to speak, this week. So cross your fingers. We'll see if it works. We'll see if I'm able to get him on, but I am hoping to be able to get Stuart Mandel on from the Athletic to discuss that. T Duck, I see you in there. T Duck, are you a Pac-12 fan? Are you a Pac-12 fan? I would be interested in that. Calling me biased there. I am biased. I am biased toward the Big 12, but I also think that objectively this is something that would stand up too. So you're going to get a more Big 12-centric bias point of view, but at the same time, I think even if all of us stepped back, if you didn't agree with me that the Big 12 is better than the Pac-12, you could at least agree that they're very similar right now. Very, very similar. Juan, I appreciate the donation again, Juan. What do you think would make the Big 12 a go-to league, even if it's third place after the SEC and the Big 10? Well, I think, one, the scenario that we're talking about playing out with Oregon and USC leaving the Pac-12 for the Big Ten. I think because the scenario you're laying out is like, it doesn't matter how far ahead the SEC and the Big Ten get. You're just trying to be number 3, right? So first, you kill the Pac-12. You take out the Pac-12. You let their powers go to the Big Ten. The Big Ten gets stronger, but now you're competing for 3rd. So now it's down to you and the ACC. The problem there is going to be, I think the only way that it really happens is if Clemson goes to the SEC. If the SEC picks off Clemson and Florida State, which very complicated because of the grant of rights being extended so long on the ACC and the crazy deal that ESPN got them in. But I think that's really the only way. I think you would have to have Clemson leave the ACC so that you get rid of like the one power holding them up. Or like, I don't know, does Saban retire and Dabo goes to Alabama and then Clemson falls off? Like some kind of dominoes falling like that. But you're talking about stuff that would take a lot of time to develop. I do think that is kind of a long shot right now, just simply because, again, as everybody has pointed out, the one thing that you're lacking if you're the Big 12 is the big brand. So you are lacking the big brand that the ACC has in Clemson. But the rest of the leagues, look, I'll stack the rest of the Big 12 up against the ACC minus Clemson any day of the week and on Sunday. You can go play those games out 100 times, as much as you want to. The Big 12 is going to fare better than Boston College, Virginia Tech, North Carolina. I mean, give me a break. ACC football, much as I rail on the Pac-12, the Pac-12 at least has that vibe of like, could be late night, zany, crazy fun. ACC football just does nothing for me. I mean, just does nothing for me. Florida State's terrible. North Carolina is, they're just a lot of fluff, a lot of recruiting stars, not as much substance to them. Virginia Tech is a shell of its former self. The ACC is blah, 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 blah. Okay. So, yeah, anyway, to answer your question, Juan, I think that is what it would take because there's no other, at this point in the game, the Big 12 is just probably SOL on ever getting a name brand unless you can develop it. Now, you know what, Juan, now that I'm thinking out loud, if BYU, if UCF, if Cincinnati, if Houston, if any of those schools can really flourish and they really can utilize the extra revenue that they'll generate by being in the Big 12 and the extra clout, whatever that may be, even if it's not going to be as much right now, but they can really turn themselves into something. Maybe there's some potential that 10 years down the road, one of those does start developing into a pretty big brand. I mean, just look at the ascent that UCF has made over the last 10 years. If they can take that same level of step over the next 10 years, maybe then you start to have a brand and maybe then that plays into it too. But I think the most realistic scenario would be the Pac-12 blows up and the ACC loses Clemson somehow to the SEC, and then you step in. But it's kind of just like a process of elimination. My co-host compared it to Survivor at the beginning of all this, and that's like legitimately playing like the Survivor game, right? So, all right, questions. I got to hurry through here. Okay. John, first of all, John Monick, thank you for the donation. No question or comment. Much appreciated. John Skidmore, do you think the reason the Big 12 is pushing more expansion is because they're expecting departures? Okay, good question, John. I'll get to that. And then I see, Robbie, you have a comment there too. So that is a theory that's been floated. Thank you, all of you guys, for the donations. Very generous tonight. I would say that there is that theory, right? And that Mac Engel said that in the video that I posted today, where he said, look, Kirby Hocutt was out there pushing further expansion because they're all expecting somebody else to leave. I think there may be a thought that, hey, Kansas still isn't that much on board. West Virginia still has eyes for the ACC. Oklahoma State still has eyes for something. And that could be a reason why they are pushing further expansion. But I think in general, it's just kind of the idea that, yeah, strength in numbers. I think there is a lot of sense to the Pete Thamel idea that you take out the conferences right below you as much as you can and just try to become the fun, like carve out your own brand as like the fun. Zany maybe is a word that you wouldn't love to hear attached to the Big 12, but like a fun, cater to the gambling, world kind of conference, and that by grabbing some of those schools like Boise and Memphis, you're getting further down that road. I think I'll put it this way. I think there are plausible explanations beyond simply that they expect again that somebody will leave. I'll put it that way. So I don't think it's a certainty that that's why they're doing it. I think it is possible, but I think there are other plausible explanations as well. God, my stupid computer is having some problems here. It's a little laggy on the stream to me, so I hope it's okay for you guys. Probably I'm going to have to lock it up here pretty soon. Robbie says the Big 12 is 10 times better on the field. Problem is current Big 12 and flyover country, no big publicity. Robbie, appreciate the donations tonight, and you're definitely right. I mean, it's the maddening thing about how all this gets treated. It's the maddening thing about how all this gets treated, that it is flyover country. There's not a whole lot of care granted to those of us that are here. I had a comment earlier in the chat. I saw whoever it was that you were like, oh, you're having computer trouble because they don't get the internet in Manhattan, Kansas. That's how all these people feel, right? No internet in Manhattan, Kansas. Okay. That's the general attitude that you get. So unfortunately, there's a lot of truth to that. MJB set 93. ACC definitely lacks luster. You may have covered this in the Amazon video, but could the Big 12 get their own network? It's a major disadvantage also. So I talked to someone today who did tell me that they believe the ideal plan would be to get a Big 12 network created, but that nobody can really like forecast that with any certainty without knowing who the partner is going to be. So like, I think the leadership at the Big 12 would like to, we get plenty of internet in Manhattan. It's not, I appreciate the suggestion there on the internet. It's not the internet. It's not the internet that's the issue. It's this computer I have that's overloaded, and I've had it for way too long, and it's just everything's laggy. But yeah, so long story short, Big 12 network. Ideally, I think the leadership of the league would like to do it, but it's going to depend on who the partner is. Like if it's ESPN, do they want to be doing conference networks now that they've had issues with the ACC network and the Longhorn network? I don't know. I don't know if they would want to do that. If it's a totally new partner, would they want to do that? Not sure. It sounds like BYU TV would be willing to lend some of their infrastructure, which is great, to help that happen. But it would all depend on who the partner is and what it is that they want to do. So I think it would be really cool. I mean, I would love to have it, not just selfishly from like, hey, let's transition this YouTube live show over to the Big 12 network, but also just I would love as much Big 12 content as possible. But I don't know. We'll have to see. It'll depend on who is going to step up to the plate and be that partner. John Monick back in here. Didn't mean to leave out a message. What's up, John? Appreciate you coming back in with that. Who do you think the top 3 favorites to win the new Big 12 will be annually? It is a fascinating question, and one that I have dipped my toe into the waters of a little bit. And to be honest, my gut instinct is UCF, like long term. I don't know how much of an adjustment period there will be, but UCF to me just screams like that they have the crazy commitment to what it is that they want to do, like to winning, to being able to put their best foot forward at all times and just dedicate they just seem crazy. I mean, the athletic director's up there screaming and shouting at the podium. They immediately announced a campaign where they have donations flowing in for $12 a month from everybody, taking out an extra line of credit. Where they've come since just entering FBS football in 1996 to now, being in such a talent-rich area that doesn't have an NFL team. Like, there's just so much that adds up to me. Already a pedigree of success across the country that does resonate. All that stuff really screams out to me that UCF can really take off. But certainly, Cincinnati, it's hard. Luke Fickell, if he really does stay around, it's hard to argue with the success that they've had. Oklahoma State has certainly played at a level over the course of Mike Gundy's tenure where I think they would certainly belong in that conversation. The thing that Oklahoma State and TCU would seem to be natural fits up at the top of that, but I just feel like Gary Patterson and Mike Gundy have both grown a little bit stale, and that they are on the back end of their careers, and I don't know that they have the juice left in them to really take over and totally own that, like grab it by the neck and own it. I worry about that. So I think it's, and look, Iowa State, like Matt Campbell, if Matt Campbell's going to stay around Ames, it's another one. Like I think Iowa State's in a similar boat to Cincinnati. It just, a lot of it is going to depend on their coaching situation and how long they can keep their stud. If they can keep him for a while, I think they'll probably be in that conversation, as much as I would hate to admit it. And look, I think pretty highly of Chris Kleiman. Now we'll see if, fair point that last year K-State started pretty hot. I know they lost to Arkansas State, but after that beat Oklahoma, were looking pretty good. And then everything tanked. If they can avoid the tank again this year and keep moving forward, like I like a lot of the things I'm seeing in Chris Kleiman's K-State program. But I think honestly, in BYU, I didn't even mention BYU. And like, of course, they have a lot of built-in advantages there. It's crazy to me to say this, but I think over the long term, like I like the 3 new additions minus Houston. No offense to Houston. I need to see more from the football program right now before I start really buying into it. I think they have as good a chance as anybody. I think UCF, Cincinnati, and BYU would have as good a chance as anybody to become the perennial top dogs in the conference. Now we'll see. I'm sure a lot of people around the league would look around and be like, dude, like, come on. But I think that highly of the additions that the Big 12 has made. And I think that I just think it's going to be a really, really interesting thing to watch develop. Here's the last one I'm going to take from John Skidmore. Appreciate the donation, John. If I don't cut it off here, guys, like I'm gonna wind up like hacking up a lung here into this microphone. My voice does not have very much stamina here at the moment. But John asked, new Big 12 reminds me of the former Big East after Virginia Tech, Miami, and BC. We were always looked down upon, but those are great times. Yeah. I think that's a very good analogy in the sense that like the vibe will probably be that we have a really fun league and a league that's incredibly competitive. Christopher, I'm not trying to mess with your TCU Frogs. All the respect in the world for Gary Patterson. All the respect in the world. But doesn't it seem like it's been on this like tenuous path where it's like 11 wins, 5, 5, 6, 11, 5, 5, 6, 10. And he's getting older. He's getting more into music. It feels like he's like making this transition to like things he can do in retirement. I just foresee retirement seemingly soon for TCU. Now that for GPAT. Now that doesn't mean that you can't eventually, go make a good hire and still carry on with your program. Not saying that at all. I think that would be a pretty attractive job. But I just get that vibe right now from Gary Patterson. Gundy, I don't know, like if he were to retire, if he's going to go somewhere else. We've been doing this song and dance with Gundy for like 5-6 years at this point. So I don't know. But yeah, John, I think the league will be really fun. I think there will be a lot of camaraderie because these bonds are kind of being forged by fire right now through everybody that's here and everybody that's coming in. Because even the schools that are coming in felt like they've been passed over for a long time, that they have been waiting for this opportunity too long. And when you merge those feelings with the schools that clearly feel like they've been looked over in this realignment process and all that, I think you'll have a lot of people really forged through fire there, and it'll be a fun, competitive league. But yeah, it's not going to get the respect nationally. It's just not. I listened to Feinbaum again today, guys, on the way home from work. Feinbaum had this line where he was like, he's going through headlines, the beginning of his show. It's just, I can't get over how lazy it is. It's just all calls. And then he reads off at the beginning of the show, like 10 headlines, and he's going through headlines, and he's like, he made fun of the Pac-12, and he's talking about the SEC games. And then he's like, and the Big 12 did pretty well. And then like moved on. And like, that was it. That was it. You didn't get anything else. So yeah, you'll get that kind of treatment nationally, but I do think it'll be really fun. And it doesn't mean that we can't continue to get a lot of enjoyment out of what it is that the Big 12 will have to offer. By the way, one last thing, just because I teased it. I know I teased it coming into here. And I would like to generate this discussion. I may do a video on this, actually. But who has the best resume in the Big 12 through 3 games? I think that's a pretty fascinating conversation because, look, the homer in me obviously wants to knee-jerk and say K-State. K-State has beaten Stanford and Nevada, who are 2, like, probably bowl teams by 3 scores. I don't think they're overly impressive teams, but they are at least teams with a pulse and probably more than teams with a pulse. But then in the middle there, yeah, there's an 8-point win over an FCS team, albeit a top 10 FCS team. But outside of that, like Oklahoma State has the 3 wins, and they have the win at Boise, which looks really nice, but they did get pretty fortunate, that return that got whistled with the inadvertent whistle there that they didn't get the touchdown on and turns into a missed field goal. And they were not very impressive in the 2 wins before that. West Virginia probably has the best win, right, over Virginia Tech, but they also have the loss to Maryland. Oklahoma has not been very impressive. What in the heck was that on Saturday against Scott Frost? So I think I'm going K-State probably on best resume, but very close. Nobody has like a real standout resume. I mean, shoot, even Baylor has played virtually nobody, but they've looked really good doing it. So yeah, anyway, interesting conversation. Didn't have a ton of time to get into it today, but that's because you guys came with some good questions. You brought it strong. It's been a fun, lively chat. Appreciate you guys for hanging out. I'll keep the content coming this week. If you didn't get your question in here, get it answered. I'm still going to do the Wednesday chat. Basically, just move the Sunday to Monday because of my voice situation, and hopefully get some rest tonight. The voice will continue getting stronger and stronger. We'll keep the content coming this week. I was going to mention to you guys too. I did some groundwork on the Patreon today, so I'm hoping that by the end of the week I'll be able to have the Patreon set up, which basically just means if you want to support me on a monthly basis, you can do that, and that will basically enable me to give you guys better content, not just be able to up the equipment game and some things like that. But eventually, if I get enough support there, eventually it's going to lead to me having a lot more time to be able to devote time and energy to bringing you guys Big 12 specific content. So it would be awesome. You'll also get access to exclusive content. I think my real idea with that is I'd like to do just like exclusive live chats with the Patreon members. So if you are somebody in here that feels like, hey, I can't ever get my question answered, or I'm having to donate every time to get my question answered, we could do just a smaller group of the Patreon people who are donating there, and you could get into a specific live chat. I could give you guys some extra updates, some behind the scenes stuff. And I think that'd be really cool. And I know that there are a lot of you out there who definitely have been hitting me up about like, hey, how can I support you? And I appreciate that a lot. And I'm definitely here for it. I want to create the best experience for you guys, in addition to obviously generating more revenue, but I want to make it worth your while. So I'm open for ideas. I'm open for ideas on what you guys want for exclusive content. Oh, the other thing with that too is, so one thing that's cool about Patreon is that if you are a Patreon member, they have their own like merch shop. So basically, as long as I just get them designs, you would be able to get a merch item for signing up for the Patreon as well. And you can set it up to like every 3 months be able to get a new merch item. So you guys would be able to get some free, quote unquote, free merch. You'd be paying for the Patreon membership, which wouldn't be a ton. We're talking like $5 a month, something like that. And then you could get some merch with it too, which would solve a lot of problems for me as far as getting the merch distributed and all that stuff. So I think there's a lot of cool stuff that could be coming down the road for that. So wanted to give you guys that update too. I think I hit everything that I wanted to here in this chat, but again, I'll be back on Wednesday. So you guys will see me soon. You'll talk to me soon, and appreciate all you guys who hung out. Enjoy the rest of your night.